Hello, welcome to this presentation entitled The Gift, Communication and Care. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to analyze presence using the concept of the gift. You should also be able to analyze care as a form of gift giving and be able to analyze communication like greetings as a form of care. So they're the three learning goals of this presentation. So that first goal is to be able to analyze presence with the concept of the gift. And this is the Mouse's basic idea that gifts are not freely given or received. Gifts come and go with obligations. They are crucial to maintaining and building social relationships. For example, you have an obligation to give. You must give your friend a birthday present, or your friend must give you a birthday present. You have an obligation to receive. You can't refuse it and say, I don't want a present from you, without breaking off the social relationship. And also to maintain the social relationship, you have to return. You have to give them a present on their birthday. So that's the concept of the gift. It's a challenge to a cultural conception we have in the West that there's a true gift. A true gift is sort of a no strings attached, no social obligations present, which anthropologists believe is a kind of story or fiction that we tell ourselves. So Mouse doesn't go So we can use Mouse's gift concept, or he uses the Mouse's. So Mouse uses this gift concept to understand two classic examples from the anthropology literature. One is called the potlatch, and that's a winter ceremony that was observed in what's called the Pacific Northwest coast, around the area that is now Vancouver in Canada. And the Kwakiutl people there, the indigenous people of that area, would hold lavish feasts with lots of gift giving, and the gift giving was competitive. Somebody would give you one blanket, say, "Well, I'll give you two blankets," okay, and it ends up becoming like a real show of wealth. So much so that you will it's like burn your blankets. It's like burning money to show how wealthy you are. And we can analyze this as a way of building and solidifying social relationships within the Kwakiutl people. The other famous example, is the Kula ring, in which presents of necklaces go around in one direction around a ring of islands, and presents of armbands go in another direction around the ring of islands. So one goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise. And these also foster relationships between the people, particularly the male gift givers and receivers in these islands. So Mouse's gift concept was kind of groundbreaking because it helped us understand these two classic phenomena. Number one, the potlatch, described by a famous anthropologist whose name you want to remember, and that's Boas, B-O-A-S, and the Kula by another famous anthropologist, also whose name you want to remember, and that's Malinowski, Malinowski, Malinowski. And this was the basis of other concepts in economic anthropology, including the idea of reciprocity. So reciprocity is already inbuilt in Mouse's gifts idea, which is that when you receive a gift, you have to reciprocate. You have to give something back. That's what reciprocate means, reciprocity. And Salins said that there are three kinds of reciprocity. There's generalized, so your parents look after you when you're a child, and then there's an expectation that when they're old, you'll look after them. So it's not really specific. Balanced reciprocity is more like if you're at a pub and I buy a round of drinks, I expect my friend will buy the next round, and everybody takes a turn. So it's kind of much more clearly defined. Okay, you did this present, now I'll do this same present of equal value. And there's negative, which Salins from memory doesn't define too clearly, but basically, what would be the idea? Uh, if, yeah, if somebody hits me, I hit them back. We also get the idea of economic spheres from the Bohannans, not so famous anthropologists, but still pretty important, the Bohannans. And their idea is that there are different economic spheres. And for example, if somebody gives me flowers, I can't give them a cash back. Like, thanks for those flowers last week. Here's $45. That should cover it. That's not the way it works. If I do that, I'm actually, again, undermining the social relationship. So, like in our own culture, we have, I'm not sure what it might be like in your segment of this society, but in my segment, like if my oh yeah no I've got a friend who's a Sparky and he helped out do some work around my house and I gave him a bottle. He's actually from he's a Mexicano. He's kind of his family's from Mexico, so I gave him tequila. So I couldn't give him cash like I would give a normal tradie, but I could give him in this friendship zone. You can give things like alcohol. Okay, so they're the concepts that came out of the gift, and you've covered them a little bit this week already. So why are we even bothering with this anthropological concept? Well, partly it's because you're in first year, and I want to make sure you've got a good grounding in the basic ideas of anthropology. But more importantly, it's very relevant to caregiving. So how are we going to how can we make that connection? Well, firstly, we can extend Mouse. Mouse is mostly talking about objects like Christmas cards. I give someone a Christmas card one year, they give me back one next year. Flowers, I give my wife flowers, and she gives me socks for my birthday or something like that, and chocolates. There's also, though Mouse doesn't talk about it, it's obvious from his writing that we can extend it to services like if I look up, I've got a friend who's lonely, I'll go and hang out with her for a while just to keep her company or something like that. Or I visit somebody in hospital. You could see that as a form of service. So that's the first thing. Given that, we can say that care can also be gifts. It can be objects. I mean, in a sense, Christmas cards and flowers and chocolates can be a form of care. I actually received from some friends last week a care package, or a set of objects inside a parcel, which was really lovely. And that solidified my bonds with these friends. And it can also be a service. So, for example, your brother's washing up after dinner and you help him. That's also a form of care, which we can analyze as a gift. So, in other words, all of the above examples can be analyzed using the concept of the gift. Okay, moving on. We can take this in a further direction, which is something that Arnold does in this week's reading. When you send greetings, for example, you get up in the morning and you text your friend or your romantic partner, whoever it is, good morning, send a message or an email, I don't know, whatever messaging service you use. Or you ask your cousin to say thanks to your uncle for lending you his car over the weekend so you could drive down to the country or whatever it was. Or if you're in El Salvador and you send saludos or greetings to your children in the USA, which we read about. These, the argument goes, are also a form of care. So why can we say that? I guess we could look at the opposite, which is, have you ever given someone the silent treatment? Or have you ever been given the silent treatment? This is something we did in the 1980s. If somebody was like a person we know had sort of transgressed the rules of social friendship when we were teenagers, especially young teenagers, I think of 12, 13, 14, somebody would be kind of like persona non grata, would be ignored and not spoken to as a form of punishment. So greetings can be seen as a kind of opposite, as a kind of service, but I also think, and Arnold also believes, that it's a form of care. So in conclusion, There are three concepts that we've learned in this presentation and in this week. Firstly is the concept of the gift, which we've extended from objects to services as well. The simple idea is that there's that giving builds relationships and carries obligations. The obligations are to give, to reciprocate, to give, to accept, and to return the gift. To give, to accept, and to return. They're the three obligations that Mauss talks about. The second is that we can also see communication as a form of care, that words can be gifts, for example, greetings or saludos. And finally, and most importantly for this week, we can analyze care as a form of gift. That is, that the care that we are going to look at in this subject, that is, humans caring for each other in different cultural contexts around the world, often follows the logic of the gift, that is, of the obligation to give, the obligation to receive, and the obligation to return the gift. Once again, that care in human societies often follows the logic that Mauss describes as the gift. And that logic is the object to give, the obligation to give, the obligation to receive, and the obligation to return. And they're the main concepts you need to have by the end of this week.